Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy New Year. I want to start by telling you about Linda. She came into my office in 2018 with her husband, and she had to be with her husband. She was completely dependent on him. She had been suffering with severe dementia for several years, and she was barely answering questions with yes or no. I would ask her the typical doctor questions about, what did you eat for dinner last night? Or how's your digestion? And I could see her process the question, but she couldn't get more than a yes or no answer out. So had to ask either her husband the questions or ask very simple questions. And I had been told by well-meaning professors throughout my training that there was nothing you could do to support someone living with dementia. And yet I'd been told by Dr. Dale Bredesen, who I had trained with just before seeing Linda, that there actually was quite a bit that we could do for someone struggling with dementia like Linda's. And so her husband had read Dr. Bredesen's books, and he came in with more confidence than I had, much more. And thank goodness, because he was willing to put this plan into action. They did everything. And I'm going to talk you through one of the really important things they did tonight, which is the ketogenic diet. Now, Linda came back just 6 weeks later, and she had markedly improved. She was able to speak in complete sentences, her handwriting had normalized, and her relationship with her husband, of course, had changed significantly. They were out ballroom dancing a few times a week. They had completely changed their lifestyles. They had done a lot of work, but Linda had gotten significantly better in a way that I had been told over and over again was impossible. So tonight I want to share with you one of the big tools that we have in our toolkit for helping to prevent and, yes, even potentially reverse dementia. I've seen it over and over and over again. And I've had the privilege of doing a clinical trial in my office where we saw the majority of participants improve. I'm going to be sharing slides tonight, and it might be a little bit clunky because we have a technical issue that we haven't fully figured out yet. So bear with me as I share slides and then stop sharing and go back and forth. But I want to describe this clinical trial because it's where we get a lot of our insights and where we had the privilege of measuring and following people really, really closely. So there were 23 participants in our trial, and they all had measurable cognitive impairment. For 6 months, we did a significant intervention that included a lot of things, and one of them was the ketogenic diet. Their MoCA scores, or the Montreal Cognitive Assessment that we did, their MoCA scores were between 12 and 23. A normal score is 26 and above, and it's out of 30. You may have seen a MoCA sheet if you've been in this dementia space long enough, either as a provider or as a patient. You've probably come across drawing the clock, identifying where you are, identifying zoo animals, counting backwards from 100, a few of those things on a one-page worksheet. And there's a total of 30 possible points. So a 30 is perfect, 26 and above is normal, and between 12 and 23 is moderate to mild cognitive impairment. Now, there's nothing mild about cognitive impairment for the person suffering with it, but that's the nomenclature, that's the language that we use for someone in the 20s or so on that MoCA score. So everyone who joined our study had measurable cognitive impairment. And what we saw after just 6 months of intervention, including the ketogenic diet we're going to talk about tonight, is that 74% of them improved, or 17 of those 23 participants, the majority of them. Now, I felt so privileged to be able to do this trial because as I developed a reputation for treating patients with dementia, more and more people were asking me if I put in the effort, if I'm like you, if I'm at home with my loved one or myself, and I'm thinking about spending the money or making the effort or changing the way I eat or changing, all of these things that we potentially think about changing in January, my exercise, my sleep, my stress management, maybe if I'm meditating or going to church. If we're thinking about putting in this effort and changing our lifestyles, how likely is it that it's going to help? And this is a really important question. Should I be doing this? And what we found was that more often than not, it does. And I'll tell you that my anecdotal sort of clinical experience with the people left over, the difference between 17 and 23, the people who didn't get better, for one reason or another, they weren't able to put the plan into action typically. Now, some of them were quite ill. Other people, weren't able to move out of a moldy environment, say. And some people just couldn't find the motivation or the gumption, the willpower to do it, or they didn't have support from a care partner or a spouse. And so there are reasons often when people don't get better, and it's not for everyone. This is hard work. It's not as easy as a pill or an IV. I wish it were that simple, and I will be the first one to tell you when that exists. I will be the one shouting from the rooftops that you can get a pill, a simple pill, or an IV that will take away the suffering associated with dementia. Right now, what we see is that it is possible. There are ways to reduce the suffering. There are ways to slow the progression, delay the onset, and yes, even reverse dementias. But it takes work. And so what I'm here to do is to share with you one of the big pieces that can make a significant and quick difference that can then often help people. The ketogenic diet, once you get into ketosis, you often have more energy, you start sleeping better, and then you feel like you can exercise, you feel like you can socialize, you start having those words come back. And so I want to share that magic with you today. We published our study in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease this past August, and so it was a peer-reviewed clinical trial. Now, it wasn't a controlled trial. There's more research that always needs to be done, and Dr. Bredesen, my mentor, is working on recruiting for a trial. If you have questions, please ask us about that. They're recruiting all over the country, so we're really excited about having more and more research. But I want to dive into the ketogenic diet and so tonight and get you a ton of value for something that you can do that's very actionable that you can start from home. So my assistant Tyler and our wonderful amazing health coach, she is much more than an assistant. Tyler, thank you for joining us and helping, and she's going to be monitoring the chat. And in the chat, she's going to put this keto diet guide. This is a PDF that I want you to be able to download today, tonight, and follow along with me, because I am going to go through this keto diet guide, help you understand it, talk you through it. And it's just, I think it's 8 or 9 pages, 9 pages, just 9 pages. And I've had many patients say, I've read all these books, I've listened to all these webinars, and this keto diet guide, this 9-page keto diet guide is all I needed to actually finally be successful getting into ketosis. So hopefully that and the motivation of everyone else's success will help you decide that, okay, today, January 4th, 2024, I am ready to start the ketogenic diet. So I want to share with you one of the patients who really drove home for me just how important ketosis is was Richard. So Richard had come from Utah to see me with his daughter. He was living with his daughter, and his daughter had noticed that he was forgetting the names of cows and horses. Not like that they had names, but more what you call those animals, generally dogs, cats, horses, sheep. They would see them in the rural area that they lived in. They lived in farm country, and he couldn't name the animals. He also couldn't find the names of his grandchildren. And so she got him into ketosis and was absolutely amazed. Within 4 or 5 days, he started remembering the names of the animals. And sure enough, when the grandkids showed up, he knew which one was which and what their names were. Now, unfortunately, he had a set of grandkids that lived out of town. And when they came into town, they really enjoyed taking grandpa out for ice cream and pizza. He did not stay in ketosis when they were in town. And sure enough, a few days of those highly processed, highly carbohydrate, highly sugar-rich foods kicked him out of ketosis, and he stopped remembering their names again. Now, by this point, everybody was on board. Even the grandkids that had come from out of town that enjoyed binging on sugar with him realized what a difference the diet made in his cognition and his ability not just to remember names, but it also affected his incontinence. So he had been incontinent when he was on a high sugar diet. When he got into ketosis, he had control of his bladder again. So it gave him back dignity. He was also able to show up in his family in a different way. He was able to engage and relate to people, have conversations, and his short-term memory improved when he was in ketosis. I think many of you can relate to what a difference this might make in quality of life. And that's really what we're after here. So the ketogenic diet, I see Janelle asking, where can I find the guide? This is going to be in the chat, and Tyler, I think we'll just keep adding it to the chat as people join us. That PDF will be available, and then it's also available on our website, but I think we'll just keep adding it to the chat. Thank you, Tyler, for doing that. So the ketogenic diet is part of the Bredesen protocol. And so Dr. Bredesen talks about the Bredesen 7. I often talk about the different facets of the Bredesen approach. It is not a single thing. This is not a sniper fire. This is not exact. What we're trying to do is do everything we can to help to improve and optimize the health of every single neuron in your brain, but also every cell in your body, right? We want a healthy brain as we age, but we also want a healthy body physically. And so the entire Bredesen approach, it's multifaceted. And so we're going to talk about the organic ketogenic diet in depth tonight, but it also includes environment. Are you living in a healthy environment, non-toxic environment? What activities are you doing? Are you motivated? Are you finding purpose and meaning? What about movement and exercise? Are those optimized for cell health, for neuronal health, for brain health? Stress management. Do you have too much, too little? How about connection or isolation, creativity? And then what about the medical treatment? Are you getting the detox support, maybe the hormonal support? The anti-infectious support? Are your organs functioning optimally, or are your kidneys struggling, or your liver struggling? How can we get you optimized at the cellular level so that you can optimize your health, both your brain health and your physical health? And so this can feel like a lot. And I know many of us are motivated. We've got our New Year's resolutions, and we want to keep that momentum going. And so it's fantastic. I'm so delighted that you're here today. And I also know that many people have reached out to us and said, this is a lot and I feel overwhelmed. I read the Bredesen books and I get it intellectually, but I'm having trouble doing it all. And so about a year or so ago, we started offering the Marama at home classes. So Morama is the residential care facility for the elderly that I designed and put together here in San Diego County, where we have an immersive experience in Dr. Bredesen's approach. So you come there and you move in. We usually have people stay for 6 or more months, and they're fed the organic ketogenic diet. They do great brain healing activities all day. They are engaged socially, and this is fantastic. But most people don't want to move across the country, or it's financially not feasible. There's lots of reasons to not uproot yourself and move in there. And so people were asking, how do we do this at home? How do we get Marama at home? And so we created a coaching program called Marama at Home, where essentially the idea is that Tyler and myself and our team help you with accountability, accessibility, information, and inspiration, plus the community and the support that you need to implement the full Bredesen protocol. So we've just gotten so much phenomenal feedback. Richard was telling us recently, this program is brilliant. I've already started, and it's helping me to get more organized and to prioritize. My days are already different. We're both doing the meditation. It's working, and I feel so much better. We hear things like this all the time from our participants, and so we're really excited to continue to offer that. So I'm going to explain more of the details around that after we go through the ketogenic diet. So get out. I hope you've all had a chance to download the PDF of the Keto Diet Guide. And we're going to start with just the basics here. Thank you, Tyler. I see her adding it. We're going to start with just the basics. What is the concept? We want to change your metabolism. We want to switch your metabolism from burning sugar to burning fat. You want to burn fat instead of sugar. And that change in metabolism creates a huge benefit, particularly for the brain. Now, many people will ask, is this forever? What about fruit? I thought fruit was healthy. What we're going to do is we are going to temporarily change your metabolism so that you burn fat instead of sugar, so you get the brain healing benefits of that. We want to increase your nutrients and heal your brain. Many people, as they age, actually all people, as we age, we become less insulin sensitive. So many of you have probably heard of insulin resistance. That's associated with diabetes. And even if you don't have diabetes, as we grow older, we become less sensitive to insulin in our brains in particular. And so our brain, when you, in the rare research circumstances where both ketones and glucose or sugar, so glucose, sugar, carbohydrates, these are all interchangeable. and our mitochondria. You can take out notes, get notes, and you can write these things down. The recording will also be available. I'm going to go into the weeds a little bit in the science right now, just because it's so important, I think, to motivating us to change our metabolism if we really get clear about what's going on. So our bodies are basically like hybrid engines. I think it's just amazing. Like the body blows my mind all the time. The brain especially likes ketones. And so it can go back and forth between burning sugar, carbohydrates, or glucose. We'll call them all the same thing. So when I say sugar, I don't necessarily mean a cookie, cakes, or Snickers bar. We even mean pasta, bread, yes, some fruits, squashes, things that raise your blood sugar. Most of the grains, things like oats and rice, those are all going to raise blood sugar and can put us on track for diabetes. But even if we don't have diabetes, we can still benefit from changing the fuel we burn. So again, we're like a hybrid machine. We can go back and forth between burning sugar, carbohydrates, glucose, to burning fat or ketones for fuel. So that's why this is called a ketogenic diet. And in that research circumstance where we put both ketones and glucose, make them available to the brain prefers the ketones. The ketones burn much cleaner, so they don't create as much oxidative stress or damage that's associated with aging when we're burning ketones. Now, don't worry, I'm not here to tell you should be in ketosis forever. Just if you're struggling with cognitive decline, about 3 to 6 months of sustained ketosis will allow your brain to heal pretty significantly. And many of my patients notice that there's changes in just the first week. So getting into ketosis is a worthy endeavor here. And we're going to talk about how to do it. And again, in the keto diet guide, it's step by step what to do, and that's what we're going through. Okay, so get out your guide. You can take notes. First page of the guide, who should not be doing this? So the one big contraindication of who should not be doing this is anyone who has struggled with an eating disorder. Sometimes being restrictive, and the ketogenic diet is going to restrict carbohydrates, that can trigger both anorexia, bulimia, binge eating, and can trigger that unhealthy relationship with food. So if you or your loved one has struggled with an eating disorder in the past, I advise that you skip this for now until you've worked with a provider. Now, the rest of the contraindications that you see here are really cautions. And as long as you are working with a health coach, I would recommend if you have any of the conditions listed here, including kidney disease, liver disease, gout, or kidney stones, uric acid stones accumulating, or even having elevated uric acid in your blood, if you've been told that, work with a provider. Gallbladder issues, or if you've had your gallbladder removed, we want you working with a provider or a health coach. If you have insulin-dependent diabetes, you want to be followed closely by a provider because you will likely need to drop your insulin because you'll be over-medicated quickly as you drop carbohydrates in your diet. Now, high cholesterol is one that comes up often. If you have high cholesterol, this is not a reason to avoid the ketogenic diet. In fact, many people find that their cholesterol gets better when they sustain a ketogenic diet the way I describe it. Not an Atkins diet. We're not talking about bacon and cheese all day long. We're going to talk about a really healthy ketogenic diet that changes your metabolism, but actually improves your cholesterol. And so you do want to watch that and monitor it closely with a provider, however, so you don't, so that doesn't get out of control and we're monitoring things. So kidney disease, some liver diseases, gout, kidney stones, gallbladder issues, diabetes, especially if it's insulin dependent, and high cholesterol. If these are anything that you're concerned about or that you have, you don't have to avoid the ketogenic diet, but I suggest that you get additional help from a health coach or your doctor. So the idea here is that the ketogenic diet is part of a comprehensive program that includes exercise. You want to be moving while you are in ketosis. And you don't want to, your body composition is going to change because as you cut out carbohydrates, you're going to start burning fat for fuel. And so the fat that you have stored is going to disappear pretty quick. And what we don't want to do is for your body to burn protein and your muscle. So you want to keep working out. You want to eat plenty of protein. And getting regular movement is going to enhance your ability to detoxify. The ketogenic diet is a detoxifying diet and an anti-inflammatory diet. And that movement is going to help to keep your bowels regular so you can actually detoxify. And it's part of the program that helps us avoid frailty. So when we talk about the ketogenic diet, there are a couple of concerns that come up quickly. And I'm starting with all the scary stuff. When to work with a provider and what the scary things are, but I want to just get these out of the way. So we don't want frailty. And so continuing to exercise will help you to build muscle so that as you get rid of fat, you're not losing too much weight and becoming frail. So we do not want frailty and we do not want obesity. And so to avoid frailty, exercise, hormone replacement, including testosterone for both men and women potentially, and work with your provider, of course, and then also increasing calories. So we've been told for so long that fats are bad for us. I want to dispel that myth right now. Fats are great for us, particularly for our brain. And of course, if we're going to burn fat for fuel, we need fuel. Our brain is only 2% of our body weight, but uses 20% of our energy every day. That's wild. 2% of our body weight, 20% of the energy that we burn every day. It is a energy hungry machine. And so if we're going to get rid of carbohydrates, we need to give it an alternative fuel, which in this case is going to be those ketones. And those are going to come from fats. So we're going to talk about what types of fats. Now, so typically I see this in women and my ladies that are getting into ketosis. We're worried about too much weight loss. And so keep those calories up with fat. Avocado. I actually recommend dairy. I differ here from Bredesen and his team because I do recommend dairy because I think it's a great way, as long as you're not lactose intolerant, as long as you tolerate dairy, then it's a great, easy, simple way to keep those calories up. So we'll talk a lot more about what foods and some recipes and good fun stuff like that. And Tyler can help with some cookbooks also in the chat so that you can get excited about this and inspired. But we want to avoid frailty by keeping those calories up. Now, we also want to avoid obesity. How does this happen? When we have fats, when we increase our fats, but we haven't reduced our sugars or our carbohydrates enough, we can end up gaining weight. And this is not what most of us want to do. Now, some of us want to do that, but I don't tend to recommend it. The combination of sugar and fat creates a lot of cardiovascular risk as well as brain risk, metabolic risk. So we want to be avoiding adding pounds typically, unless it's muscle. You know, we love adding muscle at this stage because that increases our BDNF, which is the brain-derived neurotrophic factor that helps us with neuroplasticity and recovery, really. So two big concerns, getting extra weight and too little weight. And there are strategies to avoid that. So exercise is one of those big strategies. Now, what's happening in terms of nutrition? Hopefully you have this, you have the PDF of this in front of you, download it, and maybe you can even print it out at home and take notes here. So for nutrition, what we're doing is we're reducing carbohydrates. Now, that means that most people are going to need to reduce their carbohydrates to between 30 and 50 grams daily. Now with this, so write these things down, but it's also in your keto handout, 30 to 50 grams a day. Now, what happens is if you have, the classic example for me is I love kombucha. I'm totally addicted to it. And they tend to have about 12 grams of sugar. If I drink that whole kombucha right at once, it's less than that 30 grams of carbohydrates, but that bolus dose, that big dose of 12 or 13 grams of sugar will knock me out of ketosis right away. But if I sip that over 90 minutes or so, I will stay in ketosis. So what you want to do is spread out throughout the day, spread out those grams of carbohydrates. And this might mean a little bit of blueberries, maybe 4 or 5 blueberries in the morning. There's going to be some carbohydrates even in the keto okay veggies. And if you're really curious, what can I eat? What can I eat? Go to the back, flip to the back, or scroll down to page 8. Yes, page 8 in the keto diet guide. That's going to be category 1 foods. And then on page 9, you'll see category 2 and 3 foods. I'm going to talk through how to do that. But if you're looking, or if you're really excited to understand what you can eat, it's in here. It's the last 2 pages have the lists of foods that you can eat. There's going to be some carbohydrates in these foods. Now, the question becomes, is it too much carbohydrate for you? So I know I can put as many blueberries as will fit in the palm of my hand. I can eat that and I can stay in ketosis. But if I do the same thing with raspberries, I get kicked out of ketosis. I've had a husband and wife sitting in front of me so many times I can't even count, where she will stay in ketosis eating zucchini. He falls out of ketosis. I had one gentleman tell me once he could eat white rice and stay in ketosis. That's crazy. How did they know? That is what is really important to understand here. How do I know if I am in ketosis or not? So, our goal is for you to get into a ketosis level of 1 to 3. Now, what does that mean? How do I know if I'm at 1 or 2 or 3 or somewhere in between? We highly recommend the Keto Mojo, which is one of the resources that you'll see here on page 6 of your keto diet guide. There's a few other resources here, including glucose strips, ketone strips, because the Keto Mojo will come with a few, but you're probably going to want a few more of those, plus Lancets. And we also have a tracking sheet on page 7. So if you scroll to page 7, you'll see that tracking sheet. And then you can write down what your ketone levels are as well as your blood sugar levels. So using the Keto Mojo, you will prick your finger, and if you do the side, it doesn't hurt as bad as right at the tip. So prick your finger on the side and then get 1 drop of blood, put that into the Keto Mojo, the measuring device, and then it'll give you a number on the screen. And ideally, that number is up over 1. Now, you're not in ketosis if you're under 0.5. If you're in mild ketosis, 0.5 to 0.9, you're doing pretty good. So give yourself a pat on the back and then see if you can increase your fats. Maybe if you're not worried about weight loss, you can do more intermittent fasting. So restrict how many hours of the day that you eat. Some people will skip breakfast, other people will skip dinner, but have basically an eating window that is 6 hours or 5 hours even. That can help to increase those ketone levels. Another thing that you can do to increase ketone levels is to add exogenous ketones or powdered ketones. And those can really help, or sometimes they have liquid ones as well. Those can really help to increase that ketone level that you can measure through your blood. You can also measure blood sugar with the Keto Mojo. And what you'll notice is that these are inversely related. So when your ketones are high, your blood sugar is usually low. If your blood sugar is high, your ketones will be low. And our goal is to get those ketones up. If you're struggling with cognitive decline, you want those ketones up and sustained for 3 to 6 months. Now, the best time to test your ketones is typically about an hour or 2 before your second meal of the day. That is when I've seen people get kind of the highest numbers typically, the least discouraging numbers. Sometimes in the morning, your ketones will be low because you've been fasting. You don't have the fuel, you don't have the fats available to make ketones. And so testing after you've had at least 1 meal full of fats is really helpful. Now, if you're curious, is this particular food or did that particular meal kick me out of ketosis? That's a good time to test as well, 1 or 2 hours after a meal. You don't need to test all the time. The idea is to find for you as an individual. Remember, I have husband and wives, genetically different. They're metabolizing foods very differently. Some can stay in ketosis. One of the partner will stay in ketosis with the same thing that will kick somebody else out. There is an individuality to this, and that's why it's so important. There are also other factors like stress, sleep, exercise. All of these things will impact your blood sugar and then your ketone levels. So those variables you may want to track on the tracking page, or just have a sense of what's going on and what might be impacting your ketone levels. There are a lot of things. And then, of course, we are here. That's part of what we do with our coaching course, the Marama at Home course, is help guide you through this. And many people notice, again, the benefits of ketosis being clearer mind. They stop forgetting words. They feel more articulate, better energy. They sleep better. Their weight feels more optimized. They feel lighter. Now, no one stays in ketosis forever. It just doesn't happen. Holidays come up, birthdays come up, travel happens, and carbohydrates are everywhere, and they taste really good. So be gentle with yourself. This is not something I recommend anyone do forever. But there are tons of benefits to get from going back and forth between ketosis. And I typically recommend a more plant-based diet or a Mediterranean or paleo diet when you're not in ketosis. So not going crazy, all cookies and pancakes and all the carbs all day long, but having a real whole food-based diet, even when you're not in ketosis. I think the number one piece of advice that I would give when it comes to diet is to avoid processed foods. Anything that comes in a package, if you cannot pronounce one of the words on the package that you're looking at, it is not a food. If there's maltodextrin or gums or something like that in the food that you're considering consuming, I recommend avoiding it. I see a question about gluten being an issue. It's a great question. Gluten is not part of a ketogenic diet because any of the grasses, basically the wheat, barley, all of these millet, all of these types of grasses or grains, they contain gluten. And so we avoid those because they contain not only gluten, but most of the things that contain gluten, all of the things that contain gluten contain carbohydrates. So you would want to be avoiding all of those. Okay, so some things to consider when getting onto a ketogenic diet, that you do not need to worry about hunger and deprivation. This is not a calorie restricted diet. In fact, I've mentioned a couple of times, we want you to increase your calories. I do not want anyone feeling restricted. Now, it can feel restricting to not be able to eat some of the things you're potentially used to eating, like toast with your eggs or pasta for dinner, sandwiches for lunch. But there are great substitutions and alternatives. And I think as people go in this direction and feel so much better, you lose the addiction to those foods. And it really is a physiological addiction to sugar. So some people experience what we call the keto flu as you detoxify from that. And so having some supplements on board, which are listed on page 6 of the Keto Diet Guide. There are the calcium, magnesium that can help if you have any constipation coming up. Some fish oils can help as you turn over fats. You want to increase your anti-inflammatory fats. A good probiotic can be very helpful. Some liver support can be helpful. Some fiber, extra fiber should be in your diet, but you can also supplement with that. And then using exogenous ketones can also really help this process so that you don't feel hungry, you don't feel deprived, you don't have any muscle cramps, and you don't feel that kind of fluish feeling that some people get as they change up their metabolism. Additionally, you do not need to rely on shakes and meal replacements and bars and stuff like that. There is a phenomenal program through Nutrition for Longevity and Bredesen's Apollo program that does do a fantastic meal delivery, and that can make this much more accessible and much easier. So there are ways to make it simpler and easier, but you don't have to rely on ultra processed shakes and bars and things like that. In fact, I would recommend not doing that and doing your best to cook simple, healthy keto meals at home. Things don't need to be perfect. It never will be, in fact. And when you fall off, just get back on. That's really the important piece, is that you're gentle with yourself around this. It doesn't have to be perfect all the time. It's never going to be. So experimenting, having this be an experiment that you feel excited about exploring is really where I want most people to be. You don't have to get fancy, expensive, exotic ingredients. It does not have to be that way. It can be very simple One of my favorite keto meals that I cook regularly at home, I get chicken thighs, I saute them in a cast iron skillet. I also, in another cast iron skillet right next to it, I saute the power greens. It's usually spinach and chard and a little baby kale. I saute that in another cast iron skillet. And then usually in the air fryer, I will put broccoli or cauliflower and coat it in ghee or coconut oil. And then I just put all of that on a plate, and that is my dinner. I use different spices to change up the flavors of it from night to night, but that is a classic dinner. It takes me about 15 minutes to make it. And I usually make extra, so I have leftovers for lunch the next day. And with those spices changing, it keeps the flavors interesting and I can mix it up. So I want to share, we talked about how we don't want to go in the direction of obesity or frailty. What we want, the goal we're after here is optimal health. And this can take a village. So that's part of why I want to share more about the organic keto, more about the Marama at Home program. But I want to answer questions about the organic ketogenic diet. There is a page here on troubleshooting. I mentioned a little bit that the keto flu can be something that comes up, and the supplements can be very helpful in avoiding that, as can constipation can come up, and the calcium, magnesium citrate can be very helpful for that. Fatigue can also happen. So drinking plenty of water, adding extra minerals, and then making sure you're having enough protein can be very helpful. Same with muscle weakness and brain fog. Drinking water, having plenty of protein can really help to mitigate some of those keto flu type symptoms. You also want to make sure that you're measuring things at baseline with your provider so that you can see, what is my hemoglobin A1C? What is my fasting blood sugar, my fasting insulin level? And these things will change, often very significantly. So asking your doctor about those and having them tested before and after can be really satisfying and encouraging. So I want to go to the Q&A, but first I just want to share a little bit more about what we are offering with the Marama at Home program. So at Marama, and you're welcome to take a picture of this slide. What we're doing is supporting people in an immersive experience at Morama. So a day in the life at Morama is an 8 o'clock breakfast, an organic ketogenic breakfast. And I'm going to give you some ideas of that. And feel free to take out your phone and take a quick snapshot, because I'm hoping that you'll leave feeling really inspired about menus and fun recipes that you can try. Organic ketogenic breakfast, there's a great oatmeal, a keto oatmeal. Of course, egg dishes are fantastic. And many people choose to skip breakfast because they want the extra benefits excuse me, I don't know why I can't come up with fasting. So skipping breakfast or having maybe a coffee, I'm not a coffee drinker, so I'm not emotionally attached to it. I drink matcha myself, but having some sort of drink with some caffeine in it, whether it's green tea or coffee, that can be very helpful for your brain. You can even put some of the keto powders in there that are helpful with nootropics and stuff in it. And then getting some exercise in your day. Doing a meditation or a prayer practice or a gratitude practice, something grounding. Doing something stimulating. We use the daily chronicles and we do some writing in notebooks, some journaling. And so the whole day at Marama is designed to engage the brain and to support health and regeneration of the brain. We'll do a snack, often a green juice. I'll give you some ideas of those as well. And we'll do some kind of creative endeavor, whether it's sculpting or knitting or crochet or puzzles, whatever it is, we're getting the residents engaged in creativity. And then at lunch, again, organic ketogenic diet. In the afternoons, after we have done these creative things and these brain engaging activities throughout the day, we have a much more brain specific workout that happens in the afternoon in our exercise therapy circuit. And we're going to do one more webinar this January around exercise and activities. So stay tuned for that. Check your email, because we're going to announce, I think we're going to do it on the 10th or 11th. And so take a look for that. We're going to do a deep dive into exercises and activities for your brain. One of the things I want to point out is the evenings. It's a really easy time after dinner to kick back and watch TV. Now, I get it, many people are tired and they want to wind down. However, I would highly encourage if you are looking to protect and potentially reverse dementia, then you want to stay engaged when you're awake. Instead of zoning out, stay engaged and stay socially engaged. So, doing games or getting involved in music, some kind of, whether you're playing music or singing or reading poetry, doing something. It can be winding down, but instead of watching TV. I highly recommend doing something like that. Okay, so again, get out your cameras. I want you to see, I think that probably didn't look quite right. I want you to see and be inspired by some of the ideas from Marama and the types of things that we are having. So many people say, what if I can't eat cereal or toast for breakfast? What am I going to have? Mushroom and spinach breakfast bites that are usually they're an egg, they're little fun, yummy egg frittata things. Spinach and egg bake with avocado, yum. Roasted cauliflower with sunny side eggs, right? That's you could basically do eggs any way. Chia pudding with mixed berries, so yummy. That keto oatmeal with a keto granola blend. Asparagus with fried eggs and bacon. That's the picture you can see here. So there's tons of things that we can think about for breakfast. Don't feel limited. And these are highly satisfying, really, really wonderful meals. So I highly encourage you to give this a try. All right, so then the Marama at home, yeah, like Janet, the keto oatmeal is made of hemp hearts, chia seeds, and ground flax with coconut milk. It's really, really delicious. I cheat and I make enough for like the week, and then I just keep it in the fridge and heat up a little bit along the way and find it really delicious. So here's another one I want you to take a picture of. These are keto snack ideas. Deviled eggs. I find it, certainly for me personally, I find it way easier to get into ketosis and stay in ketosis if I have quick, simple things that I can pull out of the refrigerator and just eat when I'm hungry and I don't have to think about it. If I have to think about it or if I'm scrounging around the kitchen for something, I end up with popcorn or something else that's going to kick me out of ketosis. And so having deviled eggs already prepared in the fridge or little cauliflower pizza bites that just need to be heated up or some full fat string cheese, as long as you tolerate cheese. Superfood meatballs can be great. Fat bombs are a great one as well. Sorry, that's number 13. I got excited, so I jumped ahead, but we'll come to that one. Smoothies. Be careful with smoothies because oftentimes we want to put a lot of fruit in here, and sometimes the milks, we don't always grab the unsweetened one, or it's something that has some extra carbohydrate in there. So just be cognizant that what you're putting in your smoothies is like lots of avocado, maybe coconut, unsweetened coconut milk, and then very little of the fruits. Green juice is a great one. Homemade protein bars, guacamole with either kale chips or cucumber or jicama, a little bit of jicama. Chicken salad, lettuce wraps. Those are so delicious at Marama, the way they make them. They're a curry chicken salad. They're so, so good. The veggie tray with keto dips. My grandma made a dill dip that is amazing, and it's sour cream and some yogurt with a bunch of dill and onion. It's absolutely delicious with some cucumbers and some thinly sliced jicama, really kale chips, really, really yummy stuff. Very satisfying. Yogurts with grain-free granola. Of course, the yogurt, make sure that there's not carbohydrate in that. Macadamia nuts, and then of course, fat bombs, which if you have a favorite fat bomb recipe, please, please, please share. There are lots of good ones out there. I have a favorite cardamom lemon one right now, and it's just so delicious. And I put them in a great big mason jar in the freezer or the fridge, and then anybody in my family can just grab one and go. And it's a really satisfying, easy, quick treat that gets at that sweet, it satisfies that sweet craving without raising your blood sugar. Okay, so as promised, I want to share a little bit more about the Marama at Home program because we've gotten so much great feedback about just how life-changing it's been for so many people. Um, just recently, we heard from Barbara that until I came to your class, I felt so disorganized and I didn't know if I was doing everything or even the right things. I feel so much less alone and much more reassured I'm on the right track to do everything I can for my husband and for myself and our future. And this kind of feedback is what has me coming back over and over again to offer this class. I get so much satisfaction out of seeing the community that is built in these classes. A huge part of it is understanding that you're not alone. If you're a caregiver or if you're concerned about developing dementia, you are not on your own. There are other people out there who are in a similar position, and so much value is brought to the courses through the insights and the resources that other people have found. Rebecca said, "This has been such a great course. I got so much out of it. There was something in every meeting and every class, and it came at the perfect time in my life. It was worth every penny." So what is it exactly that we are talking about here? It's a 12-week coaching program, and a um, we have there's a course that's available immediately when you purchase the coaching. So you can get the course that is there's 12 live coaching sessions with me that are an hour each. Sometimes they go a little bit longer than that. And it's with a group. So you get to learn from the group. And then additionally, you get instant access to the caregiver training program, which is definitely it's designed for caregivers, but there's tons of tips about how you can take care of your own brain. And we basically go systematically through all of the facets of the Bredesen approach and everything that we do at Marama. And then you also get access to a group. And the group class, the private Facebook group is a place where you can share recipes, you can share ideas, ask your questions. I know sometimes I'm in the middle of the night thinking about something super important and a question pops into my head, and I send it to the listserv or to the private Facebook group. And by the time I wake up in the morning, I've got an answer from my colleagues or from other people in a similar situation. And so we want to get you access to that. And then I want you also to feel like you're making the right decision doing this. We stand by this. We've seen so many people get so much benefit. We've had well over 100. I think we've done, 8 classes of 25, at least 25 people each. And so we have seen hundreds of people get better and really improve the quality of their lives and feel more confident that they're making good decisions for their health. And so we want you to be able to get access to that. We also, because we feel so confidently that we're going to be able to help, we offer a money back guarantee. 30 days, no questions asked. You are welcome to have your money back. We want this to be completely risk-free. You also will be getting one-on-one calls with Tyler, who is here with us tonight helping. She is involved in all aspects of the Marama at Home program, and she knows it very, very well. She's worked with all of our participants thus far, and she works with many of our patients at Solsari as well. And so she knows the Bredesen approach. She's a certified health coach. And when something comes up, if it's either logistical or a question that's specific to your health, you can hop on a call with Tyler and she will help you to navigate the challenges and the unexpected twists and turns that your journey takes so that you can stay on track no matter what. That's really the idea here, is that you join a group, you get the support so that all those New Year's resolutions, they stick and you get the benefit of these changes. So by all means, get started on the ketogenic diet today. You don't have to stay in ketosis forever, but get started today. And then let's do these other pieces that make it an even more powerful program. We're asking for a miracle here. We're asking to reverse dementia and Alzheimer's. And we have to put in the work and we need to make the changes. And so we want to make that work for you. So tonight, for 24 hours only, I didn't tell anybody this on my team, and they're probably going to hate me, but I just want to add a ton of value. I was thinking about this morning and over the holiday, but especially today, and I just want people to be better, and I just want people to not suffer with dementia as much. And I've watched people transform, and I know it's not always the right time, and there's lots of reasons why not, but just to make it even more valuable for everyone, for the next 24 hours, we are throwing in basically our brain supplement package. This is our starter pack for brain health. So there's an OptiMag Neuro, which is mag 3 and 8, and we're using only the highest quality supplements. These are the ones that I recommended as a starting point for all of our clinical trial participants. So this is our foundational supplement stack for anyone suffering with cognitive decline, whether they're looking to prevent or reverse. So it's OptiMag Neuro, Zymogen, and this is mag 3 and 8. This is the one that helps the brain specifically. We're going to do vitamin D3, 5,000. It's winter time, so most people can use a little extra vitamin D3, again from Zymogen. And then we're throwing in Qualia Mind. This is a very sophisticated nootropic formula that was designed by a friend of mine, a certified genius, Daniel Schmattenberger, over at Neurohacker. And this is, again, the product that we use. These are all products that we use in the clinical trial. The Monopure is an omega, a very high quality omega. And then the ProBiomax is a very high quality probiotic that we've seen be very, very beneficial and helps with that gut-brain connection. So for the next 24 hours only, if you join our community, you will receive a shipment of those 5 supplements to get you started on healing your brain right away. You are also going to join an absolutely priceless community where, in this group, people have found meetup partners. It's really interesting because we'll get clusters. There were a few people in Maine, all in the same group. We've had a handful of people in the UK, lots of people from Canada. We had a handful of people from the central coast of California, kind of right just a few hours north of us, but they seem to come in clusters. And so people have actually met up in person. They have, had accountability buddies, accountability partners show up. And many people, by the end of 12 weeks, everyone's saying, wait, make sure I have your email so that we can stay in touch on this journey. You ensure that you're committing to spending time with people who are reversing Alzheimer's like you are, people who are dedicated to this approach. We've had lots of people tell us that, they go to the support group at the local hospital or at the local Alzheimer's Association, but when they start talking about Bredesen, people roll their eyes and think they're crazy and tell them, what are you doing? Here, you're going to be surrounded by people who are enjoying the successes, who will cheer you on, who get it. And that is what I really want for people, is that community is so, so valuable. So again, the Marama at Home coaching, what you will be getting is the course instantly that has a $497 value, the coaching with me weekly, the private Facebook group, the one-on-one coaching calls with Tyler, and today, or for the next 24 hours, if you join our community and get the Marama at Home course, we are going to ship you 5 supplements with an additional nearly $400 value so that you can get started healing your brain right away. So we have a couple options for taking care of payment. We are offering either one easy payment right now of $24.97 or 3 payments of $9.47. This program has helped so many people, and I'm so excited to continue to share it. Amy told us recently, I've been less irritated since taking this course. Our days are so much more pleasant. My mom is getting better. She's more alert and remembering the conversations with her loved ones. This kind of thing is absolutely priceless. And that is what I want for you and your loved ones. So please, if you feel like you could benefit the way Amy did, or if you're like Bruce, he said he got a ton out of this course. I've made significant changes inspired by you and the group. Just changing my breakfast and adding MCT oil has given me better energy every day. My mental sharpness and even my peripheral vision is better. So some unexpected highlights of the course is that even things that we weren't expecting to improve often do. So to register, Tyler's going to put the link in the course, the link, excuse me, in the chat. And what you'll see, this now.maramaexperience.com/webinar is the link, and that link should be in the chat. And then once you've registered, you'll log in, and then you'll create an account. After you have logged in, what you'll see on the other side of that login is this page. And then from there, you can quickly schedule a call with Tyler, and she can help you navigate through it's pretty self-explanatory, relatively user-friendly, but if you run into anything, please reach out to Tyler, and she can do a one-on-one call with you to help you navigate. And she's going to do an intro call with the entire group so that everybody has a sense of how to navigate the platform and the technology here. But it's really very simple. And you can watch each module, let me know what you think, and then come prepared to our classes, which are a ton of fun. We love them. I love doing them. And it's really fun to get to know everyone and just see the transformations happen. It's such a privilege. And really, I want to express my gratitude to all of you for being here. You are the inspiration, your engagement. There's still over, at one point, I think there were 600 people here tonight. I mean, I'm just overwhelmed by the generosity of your time and your engagement. I'm going to find it here in the Q&A, that I think we maxed out at 99. It doesn't tell me that there's more than that. But there's tons of comments and tons of questions. And so I'm going to do my best to get to as many of the questions as possible now. I just am overwhelmed and so humbled by the generosity of your time and your engagement. Thank you so, so much to all of you. So Donna asks, how do I suggest someone with no gallbladder do keto? So there's a couple of quick things that you can do, but generally, Donna, I highly recommend that you work with a health coach, or at least join the course so that you can be working with Tyler so that we can help with this. But some things you can do are add bile salts, and then have your fat, so probably not intermittent fasting, but having smaller meals throughout the day so that you don't get huge bolus doses of fat all at once. You can do smaller amounts of fat and then add the enzymes that help, including those bile salts. From Maggie, I've been doing keto for about 6 months, but I have GERD and a hiatal hernia. I'm going to have to quit keto because the fat content has destroyed me. Oh, I don't want any suggestions. Well, I'm sorry, Maggie. That sounds rough. If anyone else is concerned about that, you may want to talk to a health coach, because sometimes that reflux and the hiatal hernia, there are some things that you can do to reduce what we call reduce the hiatal hernia. You also might want to look for H. pylori can be contributing to the reflux. There are any sort of gut bugs that are off can also be an issue. So probably looking at what's going on in the gut more thoroughly might make it more accessible for you. I'm so sorry you had such a rough experience with that, Maggie. Donna, what veggies do you suggest for someone who has a hard time metabolizing oxalates, since most dark leafy greens are high in oxalates? Yes, especially kale. So what I recommend is mix it up. So don't have, I think people run into an issue when they're having, kale, they're having kale somehow in their breakfast, and then kale in a smoothie, and then kale sauteed at night. You don't want to be doing too many of one thing. So oxalates and lectins and all these things come up. What I find with the diet is the benefit comes from changing your diet. And so if you've been eating, and that's what's nice about the ketogenic diet, is you get this big switch in your metabolism and in what you're eating. And many times and plus it's going to be by nature gluten-free. And so many times that makes a huge difference in inflammation. And then with the oxalates, chia seeds are high in oxalate, spinach and spinach and kale are high in oxalates, and then almonds are high in oxalate. And so you can easily get into ketosis avoiding those foods. Jeanette, I've had trouble with the keto plan I used. It was 10 grams or less of carbohydrates, and I couldn't sleep. I have Hashimoto's. I think if I use more carbs, I'll be better able to stay in ketosis. That is probably true, Jeanette. That 10 grams or less is quite restrictive. And so I think that the best thing to do would be to try again with a little bit higher carbs and also add the exogenous ketones. Um, from Terry, my client stopped drinking 9 months ago and has become physically well, but now his short-term memory is gone from the Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. Yeah, that's rough. Um, I mean, B vitamins are what come to mind immediately. However, I think that the entire Bredesen approach is designed to optimize neuronal function. And I think the ketogenic diet could be potentially helpful, but I wouldn't do it in isolation. I would really want him to get on the entire approach of and probably some of the medical pieces of measuring his nutrient levels, seeing if anything is significantly depleted and targeting that with using some precision medicine. I recommend, Terry, that we use the Nutri-Eval. I don't know if you're using some sort of nutrient testing, but that's the one that we use. Does the ketogenic diet help with frontotemporal dementia? And how long should I stay on a ketogenic diet without a break? And how long should I take a break? These are really great questions, Guy. So we haven't done frontotemporal dementia is less common than Alzheimer's. And our study was in a group who had what looked to be, some of them had actually been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And so frontotemporal dementia is less studied, particularly with Dr. Bredesen's approach. However, what we can say is that the idea is to optimize cellular function, neuronal function. And so even some of these dementias, like frontotemporal dementia, like Lewy body, like posterior cortical atrophy, these different types of dementias, I still think it's definitely worth trying. Now, the ketogenic diet, what I would recommend is getting on it for probably 3 to 6 months, trying to sustain a ketogenic diet for 3 to 6 months. If you're having trouble, do 3 months or less if it's really not working, and focus on an unprocessed, a whole foods. I know so many people say whole foods, and everybody thinks of the grocery store, which is packed full of very processed foods, but a real whole foods diet, meat, vegetables, unprocessed foods for the most part. And then when you take a break, what you do is you add the fruit. You add fruit and starchy veggies, and like a Whole30 diet or a paleo or a Mediterranean diet. Those are the direction that you would want to go. Now, 3 to 6 months on, if you're struggling with any type of dementia, I recommend being in ketosis more than you are in glycolysis or burning sugar for fuel. So like for myself, I don't have dementia, I hope not yet. And so I get into ketosis probably 3 or 4 times a year for about 4 to 6 weeks. And then undoubtedly there's a celebration, there's a holiday or a wedding or there's something going on and I fall out of ketosis. And then usually with our next coaching class, I get back into ketosis with them. So I'm excited to do this with everyone when we get started in mid-January. From Jennifer, is there a cookbook or two that I can recommend, or would I consider co-authoring one? So the ones that we recommend, I really like Will Cole's Ketotarian cookbook because it's less meat heavy. And then I love Molly Devine's Mediterranean ketogenic diet cookbook. And hopefully Tyler, I bet, put that in the chat. And there's a ton of recipes on the Apollo site. If you're logged into the Apollo site, it is behind a paywall, but they have a ton of recipes. And I have a book coming out in June, and we've included, I think, 15 or 20 recipes in the back of that. And hopefully we'll get an opportunity to do a cookbook in the future. Wondering if it's common after several months of being in ketosis that the urine test strips no longer indicate ketosis. Yes, That is really common. That's exactly what happens. So I'm sorry you had to figure that out on your own and no one told you. That's why we recommend blood. So the ketone breath meters, I've never been able to get them to work. Other people said that they have, but I haven't. They never match the blood. And then the urine, it's great for the first month or so, but then after you're keto adapted, they no longer work. And so that's why we always, even though you have to do the finger prick, which is not ideal, we always go back to the Keto Mojo. So great question. And you're absolutely right. That is happening. From Christy, my mom only wants to eat ice cream and ice cream most of the time. Tips for getting them to eat keto food. So there are some keto ice creams. I actually recently I had lemons coming out my ears from the trees in our yard, and I was like, what are we going to do with all of these? And we made a keto lemon. We turned them into popsicles, but it was with heavy cream, a little bit of milk. We used allulose, and I think I mixed allulose and monk fruit and lemon zest and a little lemon juice, and froze those, and they are delicious. My 5-year-old daughter loves them, and she has no idea there's no sugar in them. Um, and so I would hope that your mom could maybe do the same. You would be getting her good calories, but without raising her blood sugar. So there's lots of keto ice creams out there. Whenever you're looking at like store-bought stuff, just make sure the carbohydrate count, you basically want to stay under 5 grams of carbohydrates per meal to stay in ketosis, or per like 30 to 40 minutes. From Jim, how do you suggest integrating intermittent fasting with the keto diet? I currently fast from 6 p.m. until 12 p.m., an 18-hour fast. Jim, that's fantastic. As long as you're not losing too much weight. So in the population I serve, we are often concerned that there's going to be too much weight loss. And so then you would want to be eating for a longer period, but you're doing an 18-hour fast. That's fantastic. If you're not concerned about weight loss, many people get benefit from doing a full 24-hour fast once a week sometimes, but I would say that you're doing a great job. It really depends on what works for you. Some people are still working, they need to eat, or they have certain times that they can eat. For people who have more control of their schedule, they can play with different fasting windows and eating windows. So yeah, it sounds to me like you're doing a fantastic job. And really, it becomes an individual decision. If you're having trouble getting into ketosis, I recommend increasing the fasting window, decreasing the eating window, unless you're worried about losing weight. And then I want you having 3 full meals a day and potentially snacks in between. Does rice contain gluten? So super fascinating. I was talking to a gluten expert recently, and he said all grains contain gluten. Now, they don't all have the same proteins, but they all have different forms. So they're not exactly the wheat gluten proteins, but they all have different forms of those types of protein in the grass family. And so even though it's not gluten from like a from wheat, the kind of classic gluten, there are many people even with celiac included who benefit from getting rid of all grains. And many doctors will recommend a completely grain-free diet. Certainly the ketogenic diet is a completely grain-free diet. And that might be part of why people are benefiting so much from a ketogenic diet, is because you're cutting out a ton of processed foods and you're cutting out all sources of gluten and grains, which can be irritating to the gut. From Jean, I heard you're writing a cookbook. Is it available yet? I have a book, not a cookbook, but there are going to be some recipes in the back. A book called Reversing Alzheimer's, which is coming out with HarperCollins in June 11th of 2024. So if you got this email about tonight, you will get many emails about my book, and you will be among the first to know as soon as it's available. Thank you for asking, Jean. We're really excited about it. From Lisa, I use Biosense for testing ketones per Dr. Bredesen's site. Is this acceptable? Oh, I wish it were. It'd be so much easier, Lisa. I'm so sorry. It's not. I can't get it to work. I don't know. Maybe there's some magic I'm missing, but we tried really hard. Nobody at Marama can get it to work. It would be so much easier if you could use a breath meter, but the Keto Mojo works. What about fruit? So fruit is healthy. I don't want anybody to think I'm saying fruit is not healthy. but it most of the time will not allow you to get into ketosis, with some exceptions. So lemon, lime, of course, those won't raise your blood sugar. Some grapefruit you could do a little bit of, and then berries, the dark berries, a few of those can be okay, and you can stay in ketosis. But Carol, the thing to do is measure your ketones. That is the only way to know if you can tolerate. So some people, I said 30 to 50 grams. There are some really lucky of carbohydrates. Sorry, I said 30 to 50 grams of carbohydrates per day, about 5 grams of carbohydrates per meal, and most people will be able to stay in ketosis. Now, there are some really lucky people, and once you're keto adapted, you can have closer to 80 grams of carbohydrates per day. And so it's very individual. And so you want to be precise and you want to measure using the Keto Mojo. That's the best way to know. What about dark chocolate? Yeah, Sheila, there are ways to have some dark chocolate on this program. Is allulose an acceptable sweetener? Yes, it is. Allulose, I tend to go back and forth between allulose and monk fruit. There was an article about monk fruit being associated with clotting. It was a really small study, and it was people who are very unhealthy. And so I don't tend to think that monk fruit is like terrible for you and going to cause you to have a stroke and clot. I think you don't want to overdo anything. So, if you're having a ton of keto baked goods and tons of monk fruit, I think I wouldn't advise that. But if you have a fat bomb with some stevia or monk fruit or allulose in it and kind of interchange them. I keep both in I bake with my daughter, and we keep both allulose and monk fruit and stevia, all of them. And then sometimes even if a recipe calls for a full cup, I'll do a half a cup of allulose and a half a cup of monk fruit. I tend to overeat nuts. How much is okay? A handful or two per meal. Is that too much? I do eat more than that usually when I'm stressed. So great question, Leah. The nut situation, again, it's very individual. So macadamia nuts are really high in fat, great fats, and they tend to be something that you can reach for. But some nuts have quite a bit of carbohydrates, so be careful and test. And then try not to overdo it. I'm going to take one more question. From Donna Nut. Donna, oh yay, Nut. I love that. Are ancient grains like emmer, kamut allowed? So no grains are allowed. Well, allowed. So I'm not saying anything is like terrible or bad or unhealthy, but the goal is to get into ketosis. And so they're not on the list. Most people will not be able to eat any grains and get into ketosis, especially when you're first trying to get into ketosis. So I would advise against having those, and go back to your keto diet guide and go to page 8 and look at the list. There's so many yummy things you can eat here. So focus on this, and probably stay away from those. I'm trying to be generous and kind here and say probably, but what I really mean is stay away from the grains. It's not going to help. All right. It's so wonderful being here with you guys. Tyler, thank you so much for your help. You're amazing as always. I don't know what I would do without you. And to all of you who joined us, thank you so much just for your time, for your attention, your dedication to your own brain health and that of your loved ones. It's an inspiration, and it's why I do what I do. And I just get so much purpose and meaning from being here with you and all of your engagement. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Happy New Year. We hope to see you in the class. And if not, please join us next week for the activities and exercise webinar. We'll be looking forward to seeing you then. Take care, everyone. Be well.